Hi, folks. Good morning. Glad you are here. Good to see everybody. What the heck is today? Wednesday? I don't even know what today is. I'm hungover. I'll just be blunt. Just let everybody know that I had 2 beers last night. It just completely knocked me for a loop. So what are you going to do? Plus, I knew I was going to have Wade and Walt on today, so I started drinking very early last night in dreaded anticipation of what's going to take place over the next 30 minutes. So, hey, everybody. Good to see you in here. Hey, Gene. Nice to have you here. Love Boston. I miss it. Dan, I really need to get to London. Veronica, good to see you. Let us know where you're at, folks. Smack the like button. Share this thing with your crowd like you all do. Y'all know the routine. All right, and with that, let's get started. Good morning, folks. My name is Sam Maule. I'm the managing partner for 11FS in North America. I know Wade still can't believe that. Welcome to episode 106 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. As you know, in this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday. And when we can't, we get guests like today. Straight into your homes at 8:30 British Standard Time, apart from Mondays and Wednesdays when I do the show here at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Love having you all here. Also, don't forget, I do the 11FS Daily Brief here on LinkedIn every morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We post a short video summarizing 3 news stories from the past 24 hours that caught our attention. It should have yours. And then you get a tip from your Uncle Sam, a little shout out. I actually highlighted Moov in the story today, and we put in a little dancing to include it in that. So with that, let's bring the guys in from Moov here. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Wade Arnold. He's the CEO at Moov Financial, and Walt Cox, Director of Business Development and Payment Strategy at Moov. On today's show, we'll talk about the recent $5.5 million seed round they just announced yesterday, as a matter of fact. Guys, how are you?
Great.
Doing well, Sam. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I put a flannel shirt on just for these little hipsters. So everybody, if you're wondering, why is Sam wearing a shirt like a grown-up? These two. Wade, I'm assuming you're on your massive compound in Colorado still. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah, we've got enough space to quarantine with all 6 of us here, but we did buy a new trampoline since last time I talked to you. So that's kind of the big news at the Arnold household is getting some trampoline action. Our trampoline's out in our tennis court, which is kind of nice also, Sam.
You were doing so well and connecting with everybody right up until that point. And Walt's in his 400 square foot apartment in San Francisco, I'm assuming. Walt, is that true?
That's not far from it. That's about spot on. Yeah. I'm in the kitchen, the dining room, and the tub at the same time. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. And you already got a shout out from Corey LeBlanc at Origin Bank saying, hey, congrats on killing it, Wade. Nothing to you, Walt, but Walt deserves everybody a little bit of credit. So we're going to talk a lot about Moov.io, and obviously this is a whole show with beards. So just for these guys, I'm going to look like them, so we're all the same. Oh my God, I put it on inside out. That is so wrong. I apologize, everybody. My show prep was a little off. There we go.
Viking.
All right. Yes. So since you guys are the Vikings of fintech, I just made that up, Wade. What is Moov.io? Please tell us. What was your vision, Wade?
Yeah. So, I mean, the impetus of Moov is really, I've been in fintech since it was called financial services or banking services, I guess the last 15 years. And there's these kind of the substrate of features that you need in order to make innovative new products. And so whether that's ACH, Wire, Check 21, the ability to hold money and FBO accounts, trust accounts, escrow accounts, DDA accounts, all these low-level protocols that have, for the most part, been around for 40 years, and in our opinion, aren't going away anytime soon, are necessary to put together any new innovation. And so we've done really 2 things at Moov. Number one that I think is super unique is some of these legacy protocols like ACH and Wire and IRS fire reporting. I mean, these are character delimited files. Like first 2 characters mean this, next 8 characters mean that. And like ACH is 94 characters wide because that's as many characters that fit on a punch card. So we have saved the earth of finance by taking all these old protocols, wrapping them in modern web services and Docker containers so that you can deploy them to any cloud you want. And so we're really rebuilding fintech from the wire up. And then, what we're excited about with this project is that it's modular, so people can kind of use the pieces they need, don't use the pieces they don't, and leverage the community in order to have solutions in place for something that, frankly, no one thinks is a differentiator. It just needs to work. But when payments don't go through, shit hits the fan. So you'd rather be part of a community, in our opinion. That's Moov.
So I was looking at the website. I complimented the guys before the show and told them how good the website is, which I then learned they had nothing to do with it. They did outsource this, which makes all the sense in the world, because it is the website is really, really good. And Walt, I'm going to highlight one section of it, and Wade just touched on it, where it says the goal of the Moov project was to take something that all of us in fintech need that isn't a strategic differentiator in any business and make it open source.
Yeah.
That is a very elegant and very deep statement.
Yeah, I mean, why was Moov the first open source ACH library? I mean, this is an interesting question, right? I was talking to some bankers this last week that are moving trillions of dollars through ACH, and I said, well, you've got very large core providers who've been doing this for a long time, very large financial institutions who've been doing this for a long time. Why is a side project of Wade Arnold's the most starred GitHub project in GitHub, right? For ACH, it's just it's incredible, right? I think a lot of people vastly underestimate what it means to have an open source protocol, right? If you become I like to think of it like a dictionary or a word search. If you become a quick reference guide for payments in the U.S., and that's pretty amazing, right? And the folks that are poking around in our community of 550 people in our open Slack room, I mean, I was blown away, the caliber of companies and individuals, because we're becoming a reference guide for U.S. payments. That's incredible.
I'm curious, Wade. I'm gonna ask this because it's fascinating the way that you're going after this and doing this via open source. You could have easily said, you know what, I'm gonna do the next Thought Machine. I'm gonna do the next Temenos or Mambo or whatever. Why not? Why this?
Oh man, that's a deep question.
Yes, I love when he says that, because he never tells anybody that. He usually says, like, what a stupid question. You can tell by his face.
I mean, I've been incredibly blessed by fintech with the sale of Banno to Jack Henry.
Yeah.
BillGo as a bill payment company revolutionizing bill payments is a bigger deal for me than Banno was. So I'm in, I think, a unique spot where I can play the long game. Just having somebody like Matt Harris lead our seed round. When I reached out to Matt, I just said, hey, this is crazy. This is a crazy idea, but I think we can fundamentally change financial services if we go do this thing. But it's going to be a long run. It's going to take a lot of capital. And would you partner with me on this? And Matt doesn't do too many seed rounds. Matt's been around the block for quite a while, and he fundamentally understands open source. He for sure is probably one of the best thought leaders in fintech that just happens to be a VC on the side.
Right.
And so it's pretty big honor to partner up with him to do this. And the rest of the investors that came along, they've experienced the pain. They've experienced the pain either as an individual trying to build out solutions, or as a institutional investor, raising capital, putting it into a company, and they spend 80% of their capital doing integrations to legacy systems rather than the innovation that was in their pitch deck with the hockey stick. And so, we're really excited that I think we won't capture all the value we create because it's open source. That's fine. But I can't think of any company that is doing a build versus buy that wouldn't use Moov today. And most of the VCs we speak with, their portfolio companies, whether that's payroll providers or homeowners associations,
marketplaces, platforms,
they've all that's not an e-commerce checkout. I think Stripe and others have solved e-commerce for checkout. What has not been solved is truly embedding. I know that's a buzzword, but how do you really put the acceptance, storage of money, and remittance of money into your platform in a seamless way? And candidly, the answer has been duct tape and super glue and a bunch of custom code up till now. And we think that's a better consumer experience. And so it's not about maybe that it's a consumer experience that's driving the demand for embedded financial services. Makes us really excited, because that means it's a feature everybody has to have in their software application.
Man, we've had two good questions come in already. And normally I don't jump until the second half of the show, but I do need to ask this. So Danita, and I hope I said your name right, Danita Prakash said, how did the U.S. regulators feel about this offering? And that is a really good question, by the way. So far, they don't know you exist, right? You're good. This is all.
Oh, no. So we're building out a bunch of OCC regulated deposit account types, right?
Yep.
And I think that's a great example of something that should be a commodity. So, we have friends at the OCC. It helps that I've had a career where the OCC, FFIC, NCUA enjoyed visiting me for 3 months a year, every year. And so I think we are going about this a little bit differently, in that we have reached out to the United States government. We have said, how do we do this fast? And my goal is that an auditor comes through and says, wow, you wrote your own Reg E disclosure, your proof of authorization. You rewrote your own ACH library. That's crazy. There's 1,000 people or 10,000 people that have the reference architecture that we've audited at every other place. Go use that.
Yeah, I think what Wade keyed in on is super important, right? I led a third-party sender audit in a past life, and working with auditors is super helpful, right? It really tests and really challenges the durability of a product, right? And so I think the approach we're taking, which is fundamental in our values, is open and transparent, right? Like, I'm not giving a report that I'm saying generated from my code. I'm saying, here's the GitHub library and here's the report that automatically spits out of it, right? And so for an auditor, they're not trusting me that I didn't make up the report in the other room. They're actually able to run the report themselves. And I think that level of transparency hasn't been seen before. And I think that's going to make an auditor excited, which, I get excited about, right? If I make their life easier, it makes my life easier. So
how many employees do you have now? Wait.
On Monday, we'll have 11.
Wow. What? So you doubled since the last time I talked to you. That's actually not a joke. Walt, when did you join? It's been very recent, right? This August?
I think officially my first day was last month. No, 2 Mondays ago. So yeah.
Honestly, that's almost doubling since the last time I talked to you, Wade. It's nice to have a seed round to help you with that.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk about that a little bit. So like I said in the breakfast brief that I put out this morning, and basically just go on Twitter, you'll see a million stories about this. But Barron's ran a story. Now everybody's got a story on Moov. You guys raised $5.5 million. And Wade, I'll ask why the seed round? I mean, it seems like an obvious question, but I don't think it is.
No, I don't think it is. So, my partner Bob Smith and I, we put $850,000 into this project so far, and that's a nice luxury to be able to invest into an idea until it's time. And I would say for the last 2 years, into January, even February of this year, 20 stars on the project. The community was about 50 people that were pretty heavy hitters. And really, I think we hit that tipping point where anyone, like our code was mature enough, 100% test coverage, automated fuzzing, good documentation. We really hit that point where if somebody landed on our project, they could get up and running very quickly. And at that point, we had just an explosion of users, right? We're adding 30, 40 people a week. I assume this week we'll do a little bit better. But that explosion of users then led to an explosion of enterprise asks. So, hey, is this Wade's side project? We're about to use this at Square, Plaid, Stripe, PayPal, Bank of America, Discover Financial. And, you could just take this off of GitHub at any time. And it's a mission critical piece of software. And frankly, we'd like to have enterprise support. We'd love to have service level agreements, SLAs, indemnification if things go wrong, all of the pieces that are beyond software that make up a solution. And that's what led to the seed round is, the burn was just too much for me to go build 11 people and really take this thing to market. I think raising capital also brings a lot of awareness to the project. And you look at things like React, the open source world backed by Facebook, or Kubernetes backed by Google. That gives developers trust that this is something real, that I can depend on this, that I'm not going to have to get rid of this in a year. And so all of those things were part of the equation for going and raising some money. And it's been, that trajectory hasn't slowed down since February.
I'll tell you, folks, and after the show, I'll put the link out to it. Matt Harris from Bain Capital. If you don't follow Matt Harris from Bain Capital, just quit watching this show and go follow Matt Harris from Bain Capital. He is, Walt, Wade, you tell me if you disagree. I just think he's one of the brightest minds in this space, just because he's almost seen it all. He's the OG of fintech. I just made that up. I like it. So he's the og of fintech. He's been doing this forever, and he doesn't do seed rounds. He's at Bain Capital, for God's sakes. Okay, so he doesn't have to do this. So, do you have pictures of Matt, or what was it, Wade? He just it's because I got to be honest. The concept of what you're doing, the basic concept to tell people what your folks are doing is incredibly simple. I think it's very straightforward, and that's the problem I have when trying to tell folks to go look at this. They're like, nah, it just sounds too easy.
Yeah, yeah. I like to say, I've got kind of two jokes that I probably use too many times, but we're trying to be the most boring company in fintech. There's awesome. No innovation here. There's a 680-page PDF for each one of our projects. We're just wrapping it in modern technology. And, I think that if people don't get it, they're usually not in a product management or close enough to the execution path. If you're close enough to the execution path and you hear about Moov, you're like, I'm in. I'll go do that.
Yeah, that's what I tell folks. I say, just look, get your person that's actually doing the work, and just have them go look at the GitHub library. That's my sales point, Walt.
There are hundreds of customers. Well, let me say it differently. There are hundreds of companies right now sitting down to the 600-page, Notcha handbook going, I can figure this thing out. Yeah. I'm going to go write this library. And then they do it, and they generate a Notcha file, and they go, see, this isn't so hard. Now, it may have taken them, 3 to 6 months, right? Their developers want to kill them, right? Because they think a return is the same as a cancellation, is the same as a reversal, right? But, hey, I got a working Notcha file. We're done. Yeah, but what about addenda records? What about pre-noting? What about returns? How are you gonna orchestrate all that? And then they pull their hair out and they go, oh my God, there's got to be a simpler way. And they immediately go to Google or GitHub. And I think Wade's massively underselling his credibility, right? There's a reason why those amazing companies stumbled upon this GitHub library is because Wade doesn't mess around, right? He's not he's not a casual developer on GitHub. Like, he's assembled a ridiculously amazing team. All they've been thinking about and doing is writing these libraries, having them tested in a very open and transparent way in a community, right? And so when you have developers to developers talking, you get the biz dev guys out of the room, kick them out, get the product guys out, just have two developers hashing it out with Adam Shannon and whoever's on the other side. It's a brilliant thing, right? I mean, these guys are not, they're not, to Wade's point, they're not innovating. They're solving, I've got a problem right now. I got to get this file posted right now, right? And that's a, I don't know. For me, if you haven't worked an exception file, you really don't understand ACH, right? And so that's where I think the orchestration of what we're doing is pretty beautiful, right? It's not about just generating a notch file. It's about how do you orchestrate these things and scale, right?
So Sunayana asked a great question, Wade, and Walt, let you guys answer this. So, and I'm going to expand on her question. She said, how does open banking affect you? I want to take that a step further. What is your opinion of the state of open banking in the U.S.? Preach, go, tear it up.
So the state of open banking in the United States is we finally put an API that does a subset of functionality on the internet. And each one of them is the most proprietary sub-implementation of what you actually need to do something useful that I've ever seen. So I think it's a disservice to the phrase open banking from that was the cause or the goal from Europe.
Yeah.
When we use that term in the United States, it's a very bastardized version of it. It's, well, we're open banking, and it's totally the non-technical people, the non-product people saying, we finally opened something up. So
it's open.
It's open. You couldn't even check unless you knew how to do an iAdapter onto a CICS gateway onto an S390, right? So now we have a REST API that may or may not have all the functionality that you need. And as long as you sign 3 NDAs and get a firewall and do all this type of stuff, you're absolutely open to connect. That to me is the state of open banking. And maybe there's a chance where something like FDX or CUFX in the past, or all the different attempts to do some form of standardization work. But I think you're going to continue not having a truly open banking platform. And you really put this in perspective. We joke that we're bringing tech to fintech. Fintech has, for the most part, the only tech that was added was a Swagger spec on top of the same old crap. And now we're innovative. You put an authorization gateway and an API on the internet? Like every online banking company did that had a mobile app a decade ago. Yeah. So the premise, though, is I think the same. And what we're trying to do at Moov is if you are truly open, the goal of open banking with PSD2 was innovation, right?
Yep.
And really what we're trying to do from a reference architecture at Moov is innovation. I was on the Techstars FinTech Advisory Council in Boulder and New York City, and you would see all these brilliant go-to-market strategies over and over again, right? And you're like, oh, that's great. And then always slide 8, it was like, and there's 17,000 banks and credit unions in the United States. And slide 9, we're going to connect to all of them in the next 12 months. And, slide 10, 32 million in EBITDA. And you're sitting back there and you're like, nope. You don't understand. There's 11 different core systems at that one company you listed. And if it's in-house or cloud on somebody else's premise, that's on different versions, the APIs aren't compatible, the modules that they bought or didn't bought may or may not work, right? You know the story, Sam. And so they spend 4 years just connecting to get external transfers working. Or, what is balance?
Yeah.
How do you calculate balance, right? So all those things are slowing down fintech innovation. It's why if we look at the winners in fintech right now, most of them have been built on prepaid cards rather than actual banking infrastructure, which has its own problems at scale that they've all figured out. So I do think, as Matt Harris says, the fourth wave of fintech is here, and it requires somebody crazy enough to just go knock this thing out over the next decade plus. That's what we plan on doing, so that people can actually have inclusive banking, right? The only reason there's an unbanked or underbanked is because the technology solutions cost so much that you can't keep $100 daily deposit in the system and be profitable. So that's where we think that's where the real innovation is going to go. And we're excited to see what people build on top of what we're creating.
Yeah, we had some very good comments out here. Paul Loberman. Hey, Paul. Spurs still suck, Paul. I'm sorry. But Paul said, I think the simplicity. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. He's mixing sports now. Stop it. Paul said, I think the simplicity of GitHub, APIs, library documentation, et cetera, becomes as much a part of the branding of a company like Moov as any name or logo. And then I love this next line. Developers become the first consumers of the brand. When you do that, let me give you my 2 cents on that. And Walt, I'd love to get your feedback on it. The reason Amazon, AWS, and a lot of places kills it is if you go to their conferences, it's developers that are at the conferences. Yep. And they got literally hundreds of thousands of them sitting through 30,000 when we used to have conferences. But you know what I mean? I mean, you go to AWS conference and it would be 60, 80,000 developers diving in deep on stuff, whereas you went to some other conferences that shall not be named, because I'm not going to go there, where, you're sitting through the same bullshit presentations about BS that just are, right?
Was that conference any banking or fintech conference?
Yes.
Ever?
Thank you. 100%. But when your consumers and your evangelists are the developers, you will win. I just believe that.
Yeah, I think look, the business guy walks into the room of a developer shop and says, I need you to figure out blank. And the first thing the developer does is go search on GitHub, OpenStack, or somewhere else, right? Because they're not going to waste time. Developers are a fickle bunch to work with, but they're incredibly efficient, right? Yes. And so if at the end of the day, we build the best damn documentation developer experience for low-level financial services, we win, right? Because again, I want to be a reference library for these guys. I want them to be super excited to talk to Graham or Adam, because we're making their lives easier. I'm not super keen on making business guys happy. They're easy. You take them to a golf course, give them some beer. That's easy. But a developer is hard to please.
If you're selling to me, you're a moron. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say that. And I don't mean that. I mean that very honestly. If you're targeting me, you're wasting your time. And with that, what a great way to wrap this show up, everybody, because I got to go on a client call that's much more important than you two, even though I love you both. Where's the best place for folks to learn more about Moov, and especially the GitHub library?
GitHub.com/move-io, I think, is where you'll find us, right, Wade?
O. MOOV, MOOV, folks.
I think the other piece is slack.move.io, 550 actual people building financial services products. So there's multiple Slacks. There's good ones to be a part of. This is the nerdiest of the nerdy one. So feel free to join us.
And for those watching, especially those in the UK, you're going to love this. Tomorrow, join us when Adam Davis is here talking to Nigel Verdon, from the CEO of Railsbank. That is incredible timing right there. I love it. All right, folks. Wade, Walt, thanks for being here. Everybody else, thanks for the great questions, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Sam.